The rain fell in sheets, turning the world into a blur of grey. It was the kind of downpour that sent people scurrying for shelter, clutching newspapers over their heads, cursing the weather and the soaked hems of their pants. But the girl had nowhere to run. She huddled in the doorway of a closed bakery, her thin frame shivering despite the summer warmth. Water dripped from her matted hair, tracing paths down her dirt-smudged face. Her clothes, a mismatched assortment that hung from her slight figure, were soaked through. In her arms she clutched a small backpack, the only possession she had left in the world. Across the street, Harold Fisher watched her from his usual table at Marion's Diner. He'd been coming here every Tuesday for the past 17 years, ever since Margaret died. The waitresses knew his order by heart: black coffee, 2 eggs over easy, wheat toast, no butter. He was a creature of habit, finding comfort in the predictable rhythm of his days. But there was nothing predictable about the girl in the doorway. "Refill, Harold?" Doris, the waitress who'd been serving him for over a decade, held the coffee pot aloft. Harold tore his gaze away from the window. "Oh, yes. Thank you, Doris." As she poured, Doris followed his line of sight. Poor thing's been there since morning. Police came by once, but she disappeared. Showed up again about an hour ago. "She's just a child," Harold muttered, more to himself than to Doris. "Runaway, probably," Doris said with a resigned sigh. "There's a shelter over on Maple Street. I told Bill to call them, but you know how he is." Bill, the diner's owner, had strong opinions about vagrants, as he called them. Keep moving, that was his policy. Not our problem. Harold watched as the girl pulled her knees tighter to her chest. She couldn't have been more than 16 or 17. Something about her, the hollow look in her eyes perhaps, or the way she held herself as if expecting a blow, stirred a long-dormant feeling in his chest. "I'll take my check, Doris," he said, already reaching for his wallet. Outside, the rain had eased to a steady drizzle. Harold unfurled his umbrella, a large black affair that had seen better days, and crossed the street with the careful gait of a man whose knees no longer fully trusted him. 74 years had etched themselves into his body, slowing his steps, but not yet dimming his sharp blue eyes. The girl tensed as he approached, pressing herself further into the doorway. Her eyes, a startling green that stood out against her pale, dirty face, darted left and right, calculating escape routes. "Hello there," Harold said, stopping a respectful distance away. He held the umbrella out, creating a small pocket of dry air between them. "Nasty weather we're having." She didn't respond, just watched him warily. Up close, Harold could see that she was older than he'd initially thought, early 20s perhaps, but painfully thin, with dark circles under those remarkable eyes. "I thought you might like to get out of the rain," he continued, his voice gentle, the way it had been when he'd talked to frightened animals on the farm where he grew up. "There's a diner across the street. Warm, dry. They make a decent cup of coffee." The girl's gaze flicked to the diner, then back to him. Still, she said nothing. "My name is Harold," he offered. "Harold Fisher. I live just a few blocks from here. Been in Millfield all my life." He was rambling now, but something told him that the sound of his voice might be reassuring. "I come to that diner every Tuesday. Creature of habit, my late wife used to say." At the mention of his wife, something shifted in the girl's expression, a flicker of interest perhaps, or recognition of a shared loss. "I'm not asking anything of you," Harold said. "Just offering a dry place to sit and maybe something warm to eat. Then you can be on your way if that's what you want." For a long moment, the only sound was the patter of rain on his umbrella. Then, slowly, the girl uncurled herself from the doorway. She stood, clutching her backpack to her chest like a shield. Harold smiled, careful not to show too much relief. "That's good. Come on then." He didn't try to share the umbrella with her. Instinct told him she wouldn't welcome the proximity, but instead angled it slightly in her direction as they crossed the street. Doris raised an eyebrow when they entered, but quickly composed her features into a professional smile. "Table for 2, Harold." "Yes, please. Something in the back if you have it." The girl followed him silently to a booth in the corner, sliding in with her back to the wall, eyes constantly scanning the room. When Doris approached with menus, she flinched. "Just coffee for me, Doris," Harold said, "and whatever the young lady would like." Both of them looked at the girl, who stared at the tabletop. "How about I bring a bowl of today's soup to start?" Doris suggested kindly. "Chicken noodle, and some bread. Sound good?" The girl gave a barely perceptible nod. After Doris left, an awkward silence fell. Harold didn't mind. He'd grown comfortable with silence in the years since Margaret died. Their home, once filled with the chatter of children and later grandchildren, had become a quiet place. Sometimes he went whole days without speaking to another soul. When the food arrived, the girl stared at it for a moment before picking up her spoon with a hand that trembled slightly. She ate slowly at first, then with increasing urgency, as if afraid it might be taken away. Harold sipped his coffee and pretended not to notice. "Would you like something else?" he asked when she'd finished. "A sandwich, perhaps? Or dessert? Marion's makes an excellent apple pie." She hesitated, then nodded. By the time she'd worked her way through a grilled cheese sandwich, a slice of pie, and 2 glasses of water, some color had returned to her cheeks. She sat back, her posture slightly less rigid. "Thank you," she said, the words so soft Harold almost missed them. "You're welcome," he replied, equally quiet, as if they were exchanging secrets. Outside, the rain had stopped. Sunlight glinted off wet sidewalks and car windshields. The girl glanced toward the window, and Harold knew she was calculating her exit. "I have a spare room," he said, surprising himself as much as her. "At my house. It's nothing fancy, but it's clean and dry. You could stay the night. Get a proper rest." Her eyes narrowed with suspicion. Why? It was a fair question. Why would an old man offer shelter to a strange girl? Harold considered his answer carefully. "Because someone once did the same for me," he said finally, "when I was not much older than you and had nothing to my name but the clothes on my back." It was true, though he rarely spoke of that time. The winter of 1968, just back from Vietnam with nightmares that woke him screaming. A kind older couple had taken him in, given him work on their farm, saved his life in more ways than one. The girl studied him, those green eyes searching his face for deceit. "No strings attached," Harold added. "And if you're uncomfortable, the shelter on Maple Street is clean and safe. I can walk you there instead." She looked down at her hands, chapped and raw. "One night," she said. Harold nodded, trying not to show his relief. One night was better than her spending another in the rain. "I don't," she began, then stopped. "I can't tell you my name." "That's all right," Harold said, though he wondered at the strange phrasing. Not, "I don't want to," but "I can't." He smiled gently. "I can call you whatever you like." "Jane," she said after a moment. "Call me Jane." It wasn't her real name, that much was obvious, but it was a start. "Well, Jane," Harold said, signaling to Doris for the check, "let's get you somewhere you can dry off properly. If you're enjoying this journey of unexpected connection, consider subscribing for more heartfelt stories that reveal the power of human kindness." Harold's house sat on a quiet street, lined with oak trees. It was a modest 2-story home with faded blue siding and a small, well-kept garden out front. Nothing about it suggested luxury, but to Jane, if that was indeed what she called herself, it clearly represented a kind of stability she hadn't known in some time. "It's not much," Harold said as he unlocked the front door, "but it's home." Inside the house was clean but cluttered with the accumulated possessions of a long life. Bookshelves lined the living room walls, photographs in simple frames chronicled Harold's life. A young couple on their wedding day? The same couple, older now, with children gathered around them. Harold, white-haired and alone, holding a baby. A grandchild, presumably. Jane took it all in with quick, assessing glances. "The bathroom is upstairs, first door on the right," Harold told her. "Spare room is next to it. There should be clean towels in the cabinet under the sink." Jane clutched her backpack tighter. "Thank you. Take your time. I'll make us some tea." While the kettle boiled, Harold found himself straightening the living room, suddenly self-conscious about the dust gathering on picture frames and the magazines stacked haphazardly on the coffee table. It had been months since anyone besides his daughter Lisa and her family had visited, and they'd grown accustomed to his bachelor ways. The sound of the shower running upstairs gave him a strange feeling. Not unpleasant, but unfamiliar. The house had been so empty for so long. When Jane came downstairs 40 minutes later, Harold almost didn't recognize her. The dirt and grime were gone, revealing a young woman with pale skin and a smattering of freckles across her nose. Her hair, now clean, was a rich auburn that curled slightly as it dried. She wore the same clothes. She apparently had nothing else, but had clearly tried to wash them in the sink. "Feel better?" Harold asked, pushing a mug of tea across the kitchen table. Jane nodded, taking the seat opposite him. Her wet hair dripped onto her shoulders. "I have some clothes that might fit you," Harold said. They belong to my daughter, Lisa. She left some things here last time she visited. She's a bit taller than you, but I couldn't, Jane said quickly. They're just sitting in a drawer, Harold assured her. Lisa lives in Boston now. She only visits a few times a year. She won't miss them. Jane wrapped her hands around the mug, absorbing its warmth. After a moment's hesitation, she nodded. While she changed, Harold made sandwiches, simple things with turkey and cheese, the kind he made for himself most days. He set the table with proper plates and napkins, something he rarely bothered with when eating alone. Jane reappeared wearing a pair of jeans rolled up at the ankles and a faded blue sweater that hung loosely on her thin frame. She'd found a hairbrush somewhere and had managed to untangle her damp hair. "Better?" Harold asked. "Yes," she replied, her voice slightly stronger than before. "Thank you." They ate in companionable silence. Harold had questions, dozens of them, but he held his tongue. Trust, he knew, was a fragile thing. Push too hard, and this skittish young woman would bolt. After they'd eaten, Harold showed Jane to the spare room. It was simply furnished. A twin bed with a patchwork quilt, a dresser, a small desk under the window. "It was Lisa's room," he explained, "before she grew up and moved away." Jane ran her fingers over the quilt. "Your daughter? She's in the pictures downstairs." Harold nodded. "Lisa. She's 42 now. Hard to believe. Has 3 kids of her own?" "You have a nice family," Jane said softly. "I'm very fortunate," Harold agreed. He lingered in the doorway, reluctant to leave this strange, wounded girl alone with whatever demons had driven her to the streets. "If you need anything in the night, my room is at the end of the hall." Jane nodded but didn't look at him. "Good night then," Harold said, and gently closed the door. Downstairs, he locked up and turned out the lights, moving through his nightly routine with the ease of long practice. But as he lay in bed, sleep eluded him. He found himself listening for sounds from the spare room, wondering if Jane was comfortable, if she was still there at all. It was nearly dawn when he finally drifted off, and when he woke a few hours later, his first thought was of his unexpected guest. Had she left in the night, stolen his valuables, what few he had, and disappeared? But when he made his way downstairs, he found Jane in the kitchen, awkwardly attempting to make coffee. "Good morning," Harold said, trying to hide his surprise and relief. Jane startled slightly. "I hope it's okay. I wanted to—" She gestured at the coffee maker. "Of course," Harold assured her. "Mi casa es su casa, as they say." Jane's lips curved in what might have been the ghost of a smile. Over breakfast, eggs and toast, simple but filling, Harold ventured his first real question. "Do you have somewhere to go today?" Jane stared at her plate. "Not really." Harold nodded, as if this was the answer he'd expected. "Well, you're welcome to stay another night, or longer if you need to." Jane's head snapped up, her green eyes wide with surprise. "Why would you do that? You don't know anything about me." "I know you needed help and I was in a position to offer it," Harold replied simply. "The rest is details." "Details matter," Jane insisted. "I could be anyone, a thief, a drug addict, worse." "Are you?" Harold asked mildly. Jane looked away. "No." "Well then." Harold took a sip of his coffee. "I'm not saying you have to tell me your life story, but if you need a safe place to stay while you figure things out, my door is open." Jane was quiet for a long moment. "I can't pay you," she finally said. "I'm not asking for payment." "I could help around the house," she offered hesitantly. "Clean, cook maybe, though I'm not very good at it." Harold considered this. He didn't need a housekeeper. His modest home didn't require much upkeep, and he was perfectly capable of looking after himself. But he understood what Jane was really asking, to maintain her dignity, to not feel like charity. "If you'd like to help out, I won't say no," he told her. "The garden could use some attention, and I've been meaning to clean out the attic for years." Relief washed over Jane's face. "I can do that." "Then it's settled," Harold said, as if they'd just concluded an important business negotiation. "You'll stay a while." A while turned into a week, then 2. June bloomed into July, bringing with it sweltering heat that made the old air conditioning unit in Harold's house groan with effort. Jane settled into a routine of sorts. She kept to herself mostly, speaking little but working diligently around the house. The spare room remained scrupulously tidy, as if she was afraid to leave any trace of herself behind. Harold found himself enjoying the company, quiet though it was. There was something comforting about having another person in the house, even one as reserved as Jane. They ate meals together, watched the evening news, sometimes played checkers on the old board Harold had dug out of a closet. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, Jane began to relax. Her posture became less rigid, her movements less guarded. Sometimes Harold would catch her humming softly as she worked in the garden, her pale skin turning pink under the summer sun, despite the wide-brimmed hat he'd insisted she wear. One evening, as they sat on the porch watching fireflies rise from the lawn, Harold decided to risk another question. "How old are you, Jane?" "Really?" She tensed slightly, but after a moment replied, 24. Harold nodded. Older than he'd first thought, but still so young. "My grandson, Michael, is 26, he said. "Works for a tech company in San Francisco, computer programming, though don't ask me to explain exactly what he does. Makes me feel about 100 years old when he starts talking about it." Jane smiled. A real smile this time, small but genuine. These had become more frequent lately. "Do you have family somewhere, Jane?" Harold asked gently. The smile vanished. "No." Harold waited, giving her space to continue if she wanted to. The cicadas buzzed in the trees, filling the silence. "They died," Jane finally said, so quietly Harold had to strain to hear her. "Car accident, 3 years ago." "I'm sorry," Harold said, and meant it. He knew something about loss. "After that, Jane trailed off, staring into the gathering darkness. "Things happened. Bad things. I had to leave. Start over." Harold didn't press for details. The hollow look had returned to Jane's eyes, and he regretted bringing up painful memories. "Well," he said instead, "starting over is something I know a bit about. Did I ever tell you about when I came back from Vietnam?" Jane shook her head. "I was a mess," Harold admitted. "Couldn't sleep, couldn't hold down a job, ended up hitchhiking across the country, no real destination in mind. Found myself in a little town in Nebraska during a snowstorm. This couple, the Millers, they took me in, gave me work on their farm, let me stay in their barn at first, then later in their house." "Like you did for me," Jane observed. Harold smiled. "I suppose so, though they did a lot more. Frank Miller taught me carpentry. His wife Eleanor made sure I ate regular meals and saw a doctor for my, well, what they call PTSD now. We didn't have a name for it then. They saved my life." "What happened to them?" Jane asked. "Frank died about 15 years ago, heart attack. Eleanor followed a few years later." Harold's voice softened with memory. "Good people, the best." "And that's why you helped me," Jane said. It wasn't a question. "Partly," Harold acknowledged, "but also because you looked like you needed it. Sometimes life is as simple as that." Jane was quiet for a long time. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. "My name isn't Jane." "I know," Harold said gently. She took a deep breath. "It's Lily. Lily Matheson." "It's nice to meet you, Lily," Harold said, as if they were being introduced for the first time. Don't miss what happens next. Hit that subscribe button to continue following Lily's journey toward healing and trust. The revelation of her real name seemed to open a door for Lily. Over the next few days, other small truths followed. She'd been a nursing student before the accident that took her parents. She had a younger brother who'd been in the car with them and survived, but with severe brain damage. He was in a care facility in Michigan. "I visit when I can," she told Harold one morning, as they weeded the garden together. "But it's hard. He doesn't recognize me anymore." "I'm sorry," Harold said, which seemed inadequate but was all he could offer. Lily shrugged, focusing intently on the dandelion she was digging up. "The facility is good, better than most. My parents' insurance covered it, and there's a trust fund that helps with the costs." Harold waited, sensing there was more to the story. "After they died, I moved in with my fiancé," Lily continued, not looking up. "Adam. We'd been together since high school. I thought he was the one person I could count on." Her hands stilled in the dirt. "He changed," she said flatly. "Or maybe he was always that way, and I just couldn't see it. He became controlling, jealous, then violent." Harold felt a surge of anger toward this man he'd never met. "Did you go to the police?" Lily gave a bitter laugh. "His father is the police, chief of police actually, and everyone in town thought Adam hung the moon. Star quarterback, business degree, charming in public. No one would have believed me." "So you ran," Harold said, understanding now. Lily nodded. "I took what I could carry and left in the middle of the night. No warning, no goodbyes. I was afraid if I told anyone, word would get back to him. How long have you been running? Harold asked. Almost 2 years, Lily admitted. I've stayed in 6 different cities. Whenever I think he might have found me, I move on. And Millfield? How did you end up here? Bus ticket was cheap, Lily said with a small shrug. I was running out of money. I figured I could find work here, save up, then move somewhere bigger, where I'd be harder to find. But you didn't find work, Harold guessed. Turns out most places want an address and ID before they'll hire you, Lily said ruefully. And a phone number. I got rid of my phone a long time ago. They can track those, you know. Harold nodded, though the technological details were somewhat beyond him. What about your nursing studies? Could you go back to that? Maybe someday, Lily said, but she didn't sound convinced. Right now, I just need to stay off the radar. Harold digested this information in silence. He'd suspected something like this. Domestic violence, a stalker, some reason this bright young woman was living like a fugitive, but hearing the details made his heart ache. You're safe here, Lily, he said finally, for as long as you need to be. Lily looked at him then, her green eyes suspiciously bright. Thank you, Harold. It was the first time she'd called him by his name. August brought a heat wave that kept them mostly indoors during the day. Harold taught Lily to play chess, which she took to with surprising aptitude. In return, she helped him finally organize the boxes of photographs that had been gathering dust since Margaret's death. She was beautiful, Lily said, studying a picture of Harold's late wife. Yes, she was, Harold agreed, inside and out. How long were you married? 47 years, Harold said. Would have been 50 next April. Lily traced the edge of the photograph with a gentle finger. What was she like? Stubborn, Harold said, smiling at the memory. Opinionated, smarter than me by a country mile, and kind, deeply kind, though she didn't suffer fools gladly. You miss her, Lily observed. Every day, Harold confirmed. But it gets not easier exactly, but more manageable. The first year was the worst. I kept turning to tell her something, only to remember she wasn't there. Lily nodded in understanding. It was like that after my parents died. I'd pick up the phone to call my mom, then remember. They sat in companionable silence for a while, sorting photographs into albums. Harold, Lily said eventually, can I ask you something? Of course. Don't you get lonely here all by yourself? I mean, before I showed up. Harold considered the question. Yes, he admitted, though I didn't always recognize it as loneliness. I called it peace, or solitude. Told myself I preferred it that way. But you don't? I'm a social creature like most humans, Harold said. We're not meant to live in isolation. Margaret knew that. She was always inviting people over, organizing dinners, keeping us connected to the community. After she died, I let a lot of those connections lapse. Why? Lily asked. Harold sighed. Grief makes you selfish in a way, or maybe self-focused is a better term. I couldn't bear the effort of small talk, of pretending I was okay when I wasn't. And later, when I was doing better, I'd gotten out of the habit. It seemed easier to stay in my routine. Lily seemed to be turning this over in her mind. But you broke your routine for me. That first day, at the diner. I did, Harold agreed, slightly surprised by the realization. Why? It was a simple question, but the answer wasn't. Harold thought about the rain-soaked girl in the doorway, how something about her had cut through the comfortable numbness he'd been living in. Because you needed help, he said finally, and I was in a position to give it. Sometimes life really is that simple. Lily smiled, a full, genuine smile that transformed her face. You sound like a fortune cookie. Harold laughed, a rusty sound that surprised them both. Maybe I missed my calling. Later that night, as Harold was preparing for bed, a soft knock came at his door. Harold? Lily's voice was tentative. Are you still awake? Yes, come in, he called, setting aside the book he'd been reading. Lily appeared in the doorway, her hair loose around her shoulders, wearing a borrowed pair of Lisa's pajamas. I wanted to say thank you, she said. You've thanked me plenty, Harold assured her. No, I mean, Lily seemed to be struggling to find the right words. When I showed up in this town, I had nothing, not even my real name. I was nobody, and you treated me like I was somebody, like I mattered. You do matter, Harold said simply. Lily's eyes filled with tears. I know that now, or I'm starting to believe it again, and that's because of you. Before Harold could respond, Lily crossed the room and hugged him, the first time she'd initiated any physical contact. Harold returned the embrace, suddenly aware of how frail she still was, How young. Good night, Harold, she said, pulling away with a shy smile. Good night, Lily, he replied. As her footsteps retreated down the hall, Harold found himself blinking back tears of his own. He'd helped this girl, yes, but she'd given him something in return. A purpose, a connection, a reason to break out of the lonely routine his life had become. Sometimes the rescued becomes the rescuer, he thought. Margaret would have appreciated the irony. September arrived with cooler temperatures and a knock on Harold's door that would change everything. It was a Tuesday, which meant Harold was at Marion's diner for his usual breakfast. Lily had started working there 3 weeks earlier. Doris had taken a liking to her and convinced Bill to give her a chance, despite her lack of references or work history. So far it was working out well. Lily was a quick learner and hard worker, and the modest paycheck was helping her rebuild some semblance of independence. The knock came around noon, just as Harold was settling in with the newspaper. At first he thought it might be a package delivery, but when he opened the door he found a man in a police uniform. "Mr. Fisher?" the officer asked. "Harold Fisher?" Harold felt a chill that had nothing to do with the autumn breeze. "Yes, that's me. I'm Officer Jenkins from the Millfield Police Department. May I come in? I have a few questions." Harold hesitated, thinking of Lily and her story about her ex-fiancé's father being a police chief. "What's this regarding?" "Just a routine matter," Officer Jenkins said smoothly. "It won't take long." Reluctantly, Harold stepped aside to let him in. In the living room, the officer declined Harold's offer of coffee and got straight to the point. "Mr. Fisher, are you currently harboring a young woman in your home? Goes by the name of Lily Matheson." Harold's mouth went dry. "Lily is staying with me, yes. She's not here right now. She's at work." The officer nodded as if this confirmed something. "And how long has Ms. Matheson been staying with you?" "About 2 months, Harold said cautiously. "Why? Has something happened?" Officer Jenkins pulled out a small notebook. "Ms. Matheson is a person of interest in an ongoing investigation. I'm going to need to speak with her." "Investigation?" Harold repeated. "What kind of investigation?" "I'm afraid I can't share those details, sir," the officer said. "But I would appreciate it if you could tell me where I can find her." Harold's mind raced. Could Lily have lied to him? Was she actually running from the law, not an abusive ex? But no, something about this didn't feel right. "May I see some identification, officer?" Harold asked, stalling for time. The man produced a badge that looked official enough to Harold's untrained eye. "And what department did you say you were from again?" "Millfield PD," the officer repeated, a hint of impatience creeping into his voice. "That's strange," Harold said, "because my son-in-law is on the Millfield force, and he's never mentioned an Officer Jenkins." It was a lie. Lisa's husband was an accountant in Boston, but Harold watched closely for the man's reaction. A flicker of uncertainty crossed the officer's face, quickly masked. "I'm relatively new to the department," he said. "Started about 6 months ago. I don't know everyone yet." "I see," Harold said, still not satisfied. "Well, Officer Jenkins, I'm afraid I can't help you. Lily's work schedule is irregular, and I don't keep track of it. You'd have to come back another time." The officer's pleasant demeanor slipped further. "Mr. Fisher, obstructing a police investigation is a serious offense." "So is impersonating a police officer," Harold countered, surprising himself with his boldness. The two men stared at each other for a long moment. Finally, the officer stood. "I'll be back," he said, no longer bothering to hide the threat in his voice. "With a warrant, if necessary." "You do that," Harold replied, walking him to the door. As soon as the man was gone, Harold's hands began to shake. He sank into his armchair, heart pounding. That man, whoever he was looking for Lily, and Harold had a sinking feeling he knew exactly who had sent him. When Lily returned from her shift at the diner that afternoon, Harold was waiting for her on the porch. "We need to talk," he said gravely. Inside, he told her about the visitor. Lily's face drained of color as he spoke. "What did he look like?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Harold described the man as best he could. Mid-30s, average height, brown hair, clean-shaven, nothing particularly distinctive. "It could be one of Adam's friends," Lily said, pacing the living room. "He has connections everywhere. Oh God, I have to leave right now." "Slow down," Harold said, trying to project a calm he didn't feel. "We don't know for sure it was connected to your ex." "Don't we?" Lily countered. "A fake cop shows up asking about me by name?" "It's him, Harold. He's found me." Even if that's true, Harold said, running might not be the answer this time. Lily stared at him in disbelief. What are you talking about? Running is the only option I have. Is it? Harold asked gently. Lily, you've been running for 2 years. How long can you keep this up? Moving from town to town, always looking over your shoulder, never building a real life. As long as I have to, Lily shot back, but there was desperation in her voice. There are other options, Harold insisted. Legal options, restraining orders, documentation of harassment. You don't understand, Lily said, tears welling in her eyes. His father is the police chief, I know, Harold finished for her. In your hometown, but not here, Lily. Not in Millfield, and not in the state police, or the FBI if it comes to that. Lily shook her head. You think those connections don't matter? That they don't reach across jurisdictions? Adam's family has money, influence. They've been looking for me for 2 years. Now they've found me, and they won't stop. Harold crossed the room to where Lily stood, trembling. He placed his hands gently on her shoulders, forcing her to meet his gaze. Listen to me, he said firmly. I believe you. I believe everything you've told me about this man, about what he did to you, about why you ran, and I will help you in whatever way I can. But I'm asking you to consider that maybe, just maybe, running isn't the answer this time. Lily's breath came in short, panicked gasps. What else can I do? Fight, Harold said simply. Stand your ground, with help. If you're moved by this story of courage and second chances, support our channel by subscribing now. Together we can share more powerful stories of human resilience. The next few days were tense. Harold insisted that Lily take time off from the diner. Afraid that the man posing as Officer Jenkins might return, they kept the doors locked and curtains drawn. Harold called his daughter Lisa and explained the situation, or a simplified version of it. She offered to come right away, but Harold assured her they were fine for now. Just be ready, he told her. We might need your help soon. On the 3rd day, Harold made a decision. We need to go to the real police, he told Lily over breakfast. Report the man who came here. And tell them what? Lily asked, pushing her untouched toast around her plate. That someone pretended to be a cop to find me. That would just lead to questions about why I'm hiding. Exactly, Harold said. It's time to tell your story, Lily. The whole story. Lily shook her head. They won't believe me. I don't have proof. You have me, Harold said firmly. I believe you, and I'm a respected member of this community. My word carries some weight. It's not enough, Lily insisted. Adam will deny everything. He'll say I'm unstable, that I ran away for no reason, and they'll believe him because he's charming and convincing and comes from a good family. Harold considered this. Then we need more than just our word. We need evidence. What kind of evidence? Lily asked skeptically. It's been 2 years. Any bruises he gave me are long gone. There are other kinds of evidence, Harold said. Did you ever tell anyone about the abuse? A friend, a doctor? Your brother before his accident? Lily was quiet for a moment, thinking. My roommate from nursing school, Becca. I confided in her once, after Adam dislocated my shoulder. He told everyone I fell down the stairs, but Becca knew the truth. Would she be willing to make a statement? Harold asked. Maybe, Lily said uncertainly, but I haven't spoken to her since I left. I don't even know if she still lives in Michigan. We can find her, Harold said with more confidence than he felt, and there must be medical records of your injuries, even if you didn't report the real cause at the time. Adam was always careful, Lily said bitterly. He knew where to hit so it wouldn't show. The shoulder was an exception. He was really angry that night. Harold felt a surge of rage toward this man he'd never met, but forced himself to stay focused. What about digital evidence? Texts, emails, threatening messages? I got rid of my phone when I left, remember? And I deleted all my social media. But the records might still exist, Harold pointed out. Phone companies keep records. And nothing is ever really deleted from the internet, from what I understand. Lily looked thoughtful. There were some texts, pretty explicit threats. If those could be recovered somehow. It's a start, Harold said, encouraged. And we should document what's happening now. The fake officer showing up here. Any other signs of harassment or stalking? Lily nodded slowly, a glimmer of hope appearing in her eyes for the first time in days. Maybe it could work. It's worth trying, Harold said gently, because the alternative is to keep running forever, and you deserve better than that, Lily. You deserve a life. Before Lily could respond, a car pulled into Harold's driveway, a police cruiser, but a real one this time with proper markings. Harold recognized the officer who stepped out, Dan Mercer, a local cop he'd known for years. "Stay here," Harold told Lily, who had gone pale at the sight of the uniform. "It's okay. I know him." Harold met Officer Mercer on the porch, closing the door behind him. "Morning, Harold," Dan said pleasantly. "How have you been?" "Can't complain," Harold replied, trying to sound normal. "What brings you by?" "Just following up on a report," Dan said, pulling out a small notebook. "Got a call about a suspicious person in the neighborhood. Man claiming to be a police officer, asking questions about a young woman." Harold's heart skipped a beat. "Who made the report?" "Mrs. Feldman across the street," Dan said, nodding toward the house opposite Harold's. "Said she saw a man in what looked like a uniform talking to you a few days ago. She got suspicious when he didn't arrive in a marked car." "Elaine always was observant," Harold said with a small smile. His elderly neighbor had a reputation for keeping tabs on the entire street. "So," Dan continued, "did someone claiming to be an officer visit you recently?" Harold hesitated only briefly. "Yes. Called himself Officer Jenkins. Said he was with Millfield PD. Dan frowned. "We don't have a Jenkins on the force." "I thought as much," Harold said. "He was asking about my house guest, a young woman named Lily. Any idea why someone would be impersonating an officer to find her?" This was the moment of truth. Harold took a deep breath. "Actually, Dan, it's a complicated situation. Would you mind coming inside? There's someone you should meet." Inside, Lily was sitting rigid on the couch, her face a mask of fear. She flinched when Officer Mercer entered, but Harold gave her a reassuring nod. "Lily, this is Officer Dan Mercer. He's a friend and I trust him. Dan, this is Lily Matheson." "Ms. Matheson," Dan said, keeping a respectful distance. "I understand someone's been looking for you." Lily looked to Harold, who nodded encouragingly. "It's time," he said softly, and so haltingly at first. Then with increasing confidence, Lily told her story. The abuse at Adam's hands, the escalating violence, the fear that kept her silent, her desperate escape in the middle of the night, the 2 years spent running from city to city, and finally how Harold had taken her in when she had nothing, not even her real name. Officer Mercer listened without interruption, taking occasional notes. When Lily finished, he closed his notebook. "Ms. Matheson," he said gravely, "what you're describing is serious criminal behavior. Domestic violence, stalking, harassment, and now impersonating a police officer. I want you to know that we take these allegations very seriously." "Even though it happened in Michigan?" Lily asked. "Even though his father is a police chief. Criminal behavior is criminal behavior," Dan said firmly. "Doesn't matter who your daddy is. And crossing state lines to stalk someone, that potentially makes it a federal case." "What should we do?" Harold asked. "First, we document everything," Dan said. "I'll take your formal statements today. Then we'll need to verify what we can. Medical records, witness statements if possible. And most importantly, we need to ensure Ms. Matheson's safety while we investigate." "He'll come back," Lily said, her voice small. "The fake officer, or Adam himself. And if he does, we'll be ready," Dan assured her. "I'm going to station a patrol car on this street and I'll make sure all our officers know the situation. In the meantime, I'd advise you to stay with Harold or another trusted friend, not alone." "She's staying right here," Harold said firmly, and Lily gave him a grateful look. After Officer Mercer left with their statements, Lily seemed both exhausted and oddly energized. "I can't believe I just did that," she said, pacing the living room. "I actually told someone, an actual police officer." "You were brave," Harold told her. "Very brave." Lily stopped pacing and turned to him, her green eyes bright with unshed tears. "I couldn't have done it without you, Harold. You know that, right? I would have just run again." "You're stronger than you think," Harold said. "You just needed someone to remind you of that." Lily crossed the room and hugged him tightly. "Thank you," she whispered, "for everything." And the next 2 weeks were a whirlwind of activity. Lily worked with Officer Mercer and a detective from the state police to build a case against Adam. They managed to contact Becca, her old roommate, who readily agreed to provide a statement about what she'd witnessed. Medical records were obtained from hospitals in Michigan, documenting injuries consistent with abuse, even if Lily had provided different explanations at the time. Most damning of all, they were able to recover texts and emails from Lily's old accounts, explicit threats that Adam had sent in the weeks after she left, before he realized she wasn't accessing those accounts anymore. "This is good," Detective Rivera told them during a meeting at the police station. Really good. We have enough here to seek charges of domestic violence, making criminal threats, and stalking. And that's before we even get to the police impersonation. Will it be enough, Harold asked, to keep her safe? We're going to request pre-trial detention based on the flight risk and danger to the victim, Rivera explained, and a permanent restraining order. But I want to be clear, the legal process takes time, and even the best restraining order is just a piece of paper unless it's enforced. Meaning I'm still in danger, Lily said. Potentially, yes, Rivera admitted. But you're not alone anymore, Ms. Matheson. You have support now. And knowledge is power. We know he's looking for you, which means we can be prepared. Harold placed a supportive hand on Lily's shoulder. We'll get through this, he assured her, together. As they left the station, Lily seemed pensive. What are you thinking? Harold asked. I'm thinking about my brother, she replied. I haven't seen him in almost 2 years. I've been so afraid of Adam finding me that I've stayed away from the one family member I have left. Maybe it's time to change that, Harold suggested gently. Lily nodded. Maybe it is. That evening they sat at Harold's kitchen table, planning a trip to Michigan. Not to Lily's hometown, where Adam and his father still lived, but to the care facility where her brother resided. I'll come with you, Harold offered, if you want the company. Lily looked up from the bus schedule she'd been studying. You would do that? It's a long trip. I haven't been on a proper journey in years, Harold said with a smile. Might do me good to see something besides Millfield. The relief on Lily's face was answer enough. For all her newfound courage, the thought of returning to Michigan alone was still terrifying. We should go soon, she said, before the weather turns. Next week, Harold agreed. I'll call Lisa and let her know we'll be away. As they finalized their plans, a knock came at the door, a sharp, authoritative rap that made them both freeze. Harold moved to the window and carefully peered out. It's Dan, he said, recognizing Officer Mercer's form on the porch, and someone else with him. Lily stood, tension radiating from her body. Police? No, Harold said, squinting through the curtain. Looks like a woman. Older. They opened the door together. Dan Mercer stood there in his uniform, and beside him was a woman in her 60s with silver hair and a face lined with worry. Harold, Lily, Dan said formally. This is Eleanor Matheson. She says she's Lily's aunt. Lily gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. Aunt Ellie? The woman's eyes filled with tears. Lily, she breathed. Oh my God, it's really you. Before anyone could say another word, Aunt Ellie had swept Lily into a fierce embrace, clinging to her as if afraid she might disappear. We thought you were dead, she whispered into Lily's hair. All this time we thought he'd killed you. Over cups of tea in Harold's living room, Eleanor Matheson explained how she'd spent the last 2 years searching for her niece. After your parents died, I tried to stay in touch, she told Lily. But Adam always had an excuse for why you couldn't come to the phone. Then suddenly you were gone, and he was telling everyone you'd had some kind of breakdown and run off. You didn't believe him? Lily asked. Aunt Ellie snorted. Of course not. I knew that boy was trouble from the start, too charming by half, and I saw the way he watched you, controlled you. When you disappeared, I went straight to the police, but his father is the police chief, Lily finished. Exactly. They took a report, but nothing came of it. So I hired a private investigator. For 2 years we've been chasing leads, always one step behind you. How did you find me now? Harold asked. Aunt Ellie turned to Officer Mercer. This fine young man, when your detective started making inquiries in Michigan about Lily's case, word eventually reached my PI. He connected the dots and contacted me immediately. I checked her credentials thoroughly, Dan assured them. She is who she says she is. Lily shook her head in wonder. All this time, I thought no one was looking for me, that no one cared. Oh, sweetheart, Aunt Ellie said, taking Lily's hands. I never stopped looking, never stopped caring, and I wasn't the only one. Your brother's doctors, your old friends from nursing school, even some of the officers in town who weren't under John Carruthers' thumb, we all knew something wasn't right. And Adam? Lily asked, her voice small. Where is he now? Aunt Ellie's expression hardened. Thanks to your evidence and testimony, he was arrested this morning. His father couldn't protect him from this, not with the state police and potentially the FBI involved. They're holding him without bail pending a hearing. Lily sat back, stunned. It's really over? Just like that. Not just like that, Officer Mercer corrected gently. This happened because you were brave enough to come forward, because you built a case, because you stopped running. Lily turned to Harold, her eyes shining with tears. Because I had help, she said softly. Someone who believed in me when I couldn't believe in myself. Harold felt his own eyes growing damp. You did the hard part, he told her. I just provided a safe place to land. Later, after Officer Mercer had left and Aunt Ellie had been settled in the spare room, Lily insisted on taking the couch. Harold found himself alone on the porch, watching the stars emerge in the evening sky. The door creaked open behind him, and Lily stepped out, wrapping a cardigan around her shoulders against the autumn chill. May I join you? She asked. Always, Harold replied, moving over on the porch swing to make room for her. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, gently rocking back and forth. What happens now? Harold finally asked, voicing the question that had been on his mind since Aunt Ellie's arrival. Lily turned to look at him, her face serene in the dim porch light. Now I go see my brother, with Aunt Ellie, and you too, if you still want to come. Of course, Harold said. And after that? Lily smiled. After that, I think I might go back to school, finish my nursing degree. Aunt Ellie says there's still money in my parents' education fund. That's wonderful, Harold said, genuinely pleased for her. You'll make an excellent nurse. And then, Lily continued, I think I might come back to Millfield. Harold tried not to show his surprise. You would? Even after everything that happened here? Especially after everything that happened here, Lily said firmly. This is the place where I stopped running, Harold, where I found my courage again, where I met you. She reached over and took his hand. This is the place where I got my second chance. Harold squeezed her hand, emotion making it difficult to speak. You know you always have a home here, he finally managed, for as long as you want it. Lily leaned her head against his shoulder, a gesture that had become familiar and comforting to them both. I know, she said softly. That's why I want to come back. Above them, the stars continued their ancient dance across the sky, bearing witness to the unlikely bond between an old man and a young woman who had saved each other in ways neither could have imagined that rainy day in June. With nothing, not even her name, Lily had found a second chance with a lonely old man. And in helping her reclaim her life, Harold had rediscovered his own. If this story of courage, compassion, and second chances touched your heart, subscribe to our channel now. Together, we'll explore more stories that remind us of the extraordinary resilience of the human spirit and the healing power of connection.